Today, we're going to explore one of the most important yet often overlooked ecosystems in California, riparian forests and the trees that define them. Although these habitats occupy only a relatively small percentage of California's land area, they support an extraordinary amount of diversity and perform some of the most important ecological functions in the state. The word riparian comes from the Latin word ripa, meaning riverbank. Simply put, riparian areas are the lands immediately adjacent to rivers, streams, lakes, wetlands, and floodplains. They represent the transition zone between aquatic environments and upland ecosystems. Wherever water and trees meet, there is usually a riparian system. Riparian forests occur all over the world, from the Amazon River Basin and European floodplain forests to the river systems of Africa and Asia. Trees have evolved alongside waterways for millions of years. These environments are often among the most productive ecosystems on Earth because water availability supports abundant plant growth and creates habitat for countless organisms. North America contains some of the world's most diverse riparian ecosystems, from the cypress swamps of the southeastern United States to the cottonwood forests of the Great Plains and the willow-lined rivers of the Pacific Northwest. Riparian forests support tremendous biological diversity and play critical roles in water quality, flood control, and wildlife conservation. California's riparian ecosystems are particularly remarkable because they exist within one of the most climatically diverse states in the country. The state contains snow-fed mountain rivers, seasonal creeks, coastal streams, desert washes, and expansive floodplains. As a result, California supports numerous riparian communities, each with its own characteristic tree species. One of the most important concepts to understand about riparian trees is that they are defined largely by water. Unlike many upland species that are adapted to prolonged drought and dry soils, riparian trees often evolved in environments with periodic flooding, shallow groundwater, saturated soils, or seasonal stream flow. Their presence frequently tells us something about the site itself. If you learn to recognize riparian trees, you can often make surprisingly accurate predictions about soil moisture, water availability, and site conditions before ever examining the ground. Perhaps the most iconic riparian tree in California is the California sycamore. This magnificent tree commonly grows along streams, floodplains, canyons, and seasonal waterways throughout much of the state. California sycamores can become massive trees, often developing broad, spreading crowns and enormous trunks that make them some of the largest deciduous trees in California. California sycamore is relatively easy to identify. Its bark peels away in irregular patches, exposing smooth white, tan, and gray surfaces that create a striking mottled appearance. The leaves are large, palmately lobed, and resemble oversized maple leaves. During winter, clusters of fuzzy spherical seed balls often remain hanging from the branches, providing another excellent identification feature. Ecologically, California sycamore are incredibly important. Their broad canopies provide shade that helps moderate water temperatures, benefiting fish and aquatic organisms. Their extensive root systems help stabilize stream banks and reduce erosion, while their large branches provide nesting and perching opportunities for numerous bird species. Another defining riparian tree of California is Fremont cottonwood. Fremont cottonwood are among the fastest growing native trees in the state and frequently dominate floodplains, river corridors, and low-lying riparian areas. Fremont cottonwoods are easy to recognize by their triangular to heart-shaped leaves, flattened leaf stalks, and deeply furrowed bark on mature trees. One of their most recognizable characteristics is the way their leaves flutter and shimmer in even the slightest breeze, producing a sound and visual movement that is unmistakable. Cottonwoods are considered pioneer species. They are often among the first trees to colonize newly deposited sediments following floods. Their seeds are tiny and attached to cotton-like fibers that allow them to disperse by wind and water. However, successful establishment usually requires moist, exposed soils and favorable water conditions, making cottonwoods highly dependent on natural river processes. Black willow is another cornerstone of California's riparian forests. Willows have evolved to thrive in environments where few trees can survive. They tolerate flooding, saturated soils, and dynamic river systems that are constantly changing. Black willow can often be recognized by its long, narrow leaves and deeply furrowed bark. Willows possess extraordinary regenerative abilities. Broken branches that become partially buried in moist soil can sometimes produce roots and establish new trees. This ability allows willows to quickly colonize stream banks and recover following disturbance. Willows are ecological powerhouses. Their dense root systems help stabilize banks and reduce erosion, while their branches and foliage provide habitat and food resources for countless insects, birds, and mammals. In many riparian systems, willows are among the most important species supporting biodiversity. White alder is another major riparian tree throughout California. White alder commonly occurs along streams and rivers and is especially abundant in foothill and mountain riparian habitats. White alder can be identified by its smooth gray bark and ovate leaves with serrated margins. One of the most fascinating characteristics of alders is their relationship with nitrogen-fixing bacteria. Specialized structures on their roots house bacteria capable of converting atmospheric nitrogen into forms that plants can use. This process enriches soils and improves site fertility, benefiting not only alders themselves, but many neighboring plant species as well. One of the remarkable characteristics shared by many riparian trees is their ability to tolerate disturbance. Floods can deposit sediment, erode banks, uproot vegetation, and dramatically alter stream channels. Yet many riparian trees have evolved strategies that allow them to survive and even depend upon these disturbances. In many cases, flooding is not destructive from an ecological perspective. Instead, it functions as a renewal process that creates new habitat, redistributes nutrients, and provides opportunities for seeding establishment. Riparian forests are dynamic systems that are constantly changing and renewing themselves. The ecological importance of riparian forests cannot be overstated. Although riparian areas occupy a relatively small portion of California's landscape, they support an extraordinarily high percentage of the state's wildlife species. Birds, mammals, reptiles, amphibians, insects, and fish all depend upon riparian systems for food, shelter, breeding habitat, migration corridors, or water resources. Riparian trees also perform critical functions for watersheds. Their roots stabilize soils and reduce erosion. Their canopies shade streams and moderate water temperatures. Their leaves contribute nutrients that support aquatic food webs. They slow floodwaters, improve water quality, recharge groundwater, and help maintain ecological processes that benefit entire river systems. Humans have depended upon riparian forests for thousands of years. Indigenous peoples throughout California relied heavily on riparian trees and waterways for food, medicine, tools, shelter, and transportation. Willows were widely used in basketry and construction. Sycamores and cottonwoods provided shade and resources in otherwise hot environments. Rivers and riparian corridors often served as centers of human activity and settlement. Today, riparian forests continue to provide enormous benefits. They support recreation, protect water resources, provide wildlife habitat, reduce erosion, improve water quality, and contribute to the scenic beauty of California's landscapes. Yet, they are also among the state's most altered and threatened ecosystems. Urban development, agriculture, dams, channelization, invasive species, altered flood regimes, groundwater depletion, and climate change have significantly impacted riparian habitats throughout California. From an arboriculture perspective, riparian trees present their own unique considerations. Because many species evolved in environments with reliable water availability, changes in hydrology can have significant impacts on tree health. When assessing riparian trees, pay close attention to site conditions, stream alterations, changes in water flow, soil disturbance, and signs of environmental stress. Crown density, leaf size, dieback, and epicormic growth can all provide important clues about a tree's condition. Structural defects should also be carefully evaluated. Riparian trees often develop large spreading crowns and may experience flooding, saturated soils, bank erosion, and root exposure. Look for decay, deadwood, weak branch attachments, soil movement, root plate instability, and evidence of undercutting along stream banks. Cottonwoods and willows, in particular, can develop large limbs and extensive decay as they age. Pruning objectives for riparian trees should generally emphasize structural integrity, public safety, and preservation of ecological function. Early structural pruning can help establish strong architecture and reduce future defects. Dead, damaged, and defective branches may warrant removal in managed landscapes, but excessive pruning should generally be avoided. These trees evolved as components of functioning ecosystems, and their natural forms often provide important habitat value for wildlife. Perhaps the greatest lesson riparian trees teach us is that forests and water are inseparable. Wherever healthy rivers exist, healthy riparian forests often follow. These trees do far more than simply grow near water. They shape stream channels, stabilize landscapes, support biodiversity, influence water quality, and connect entire ecosystems. The next time you encounter a California sycamore leaning over a creek, hear the leaves of a cottonwood trembling in the wind, or see a willow growing along a riverbank, take a moment to appreciate what you are observing. You are not simply looking at another tree, you are looking at a living system where water, soil, wildlife, and vegetation have evolved together over thousands of years. Understanding those relationships transforms a simple stand of trees into one of the most important ecosystems in California.